Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to get started on today's training around getting more meetings, getting buyers to call you back, etc. And so we'll be diving into that. I'm excited to see people engaged in the chat already. I love that because this is your community, right? I'm here providing the training, and I definitely want to network with you, etc. But it's your community, so make sure you're engaging in there as we go forward, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And you'll build your network, which is super exciting to me. Hey, actually, just really quick, because we've got a small amount of people here just getting started off. I am curious in the chat. One of the things I was thinking about doing is this kind of a LinkedIn challenge to help you get to 100 or add 100 new connections within 30 days, like 100 new GovCon connections in 30 days. Just put in the chat. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. And I can explain more next year as I'm starting to go that path. I wanted to give you a quick tip for success for those of you showing up early on time, because I really do appreciate it when you do that. The tip for you today is just to add my training event to your calendar. We have an add event link. I can send it to you. It'll probably go into the chat at some point here, but copy it and put it on your calendar, because one of the only complaints or issues I've heard in 2024 with the training was sometimes LinkedIn wouldn't remind us, or they wouldn't tell us where it was at, et cetera. And it just made it hard on us. And so we created I think it's like an ad event calendar link. And when you follow our calendar, you add it to your calendar, and all of my events are in there. And as I schedule them, I go back in and update it with, hey, here's what we're going to be talking about. So if you haven't done that, do that already. We just started that this month, and my goal is for us to have a couple of hundred people who actually have this on their calendar, and we're reminding ourselves to come back day after day. So, okay. I get asked all the time, when I'm doing these trainings, when I'm out and about, or people just reaching out, right? How can I get federal buyers to follow back up with me? That's the whole idea of today's lesson. How do I get them to respond to me? Why aren't they responding to me? And I really want to drive down on that, because you should expect that they're going to call you back, right? If you're reaching out to anybody, if you're in sales and in government contracting, we're all basically in sales. If you're in sales and you're reaching out to potential teammates, potential buyers, it's very realistic for you to expect them to be getting back to you, or a portion of it, right? In sales, we say that some will, some won't, so what? Some will, some won't, so what? And what that really means is that when you're reaching out to a group of people, some people will do what you want them to do. Some people won't. So what? Just move on. And what we try to teach salespeople, and I've been doing sales a long time, what we try to teach salespeople is don't get knocked down or focused and hyper-focused and paying attention to the people who aren't responding, or the people who say no. They don't deserve your attention. It's the ones who say yes that deserve your attention. And so the so what at the end of that, some will, some won't, so what? The so what is, so what if people don't respond? Let's go back to the people who do. If you follow, and let me see if I can share a quick screen on this. Let me find my thing. Let me see if I can share this really quick. If you follow, and that didn't quite work, so let me turn my camera off. Okay, that works. I got to figure out how to do it better next time. But this is a bell curve I teach, and starting today, I'm going to start calling it a sales bell curve. And the idea is that, remember I said some will, that's the left side of the bell curve, and some won't. 50% of the people will not do what you want them to do. 34% of the people will do what you want, but only after somebody else has done it and makes a referral or recommendation, et cetera. And so what that means is that only 16% of the people, or 16 out of 100 people, are going to respond to you. They're going to schedule a meeting like you want. So that idea, as you move forward, it puts it in perspective that not everybody you reach out to needs to respond to you, but you should expect a certain amount of people to respond. So we're going to talk about that. How do we sit there and get them to respond to us? And how do we start driving forward? And so we're going to do that with getting federal buyers to call you back. That's this lesson we're going to do right now. In this lesson, I want to break it down into 4 components. The first thing is I just want to talk about outreach, because when you're talking about sending an email, making a phone call, et cetera, that's outreach. I teach the 7-step process in federal revenue success, and outreach is the 3rd step. It's the step before relationships, those first meetings. but is it a talent or is it a skill? I'm going to let you know. Spoiler, it's a skill, right? But we'll dive into understanding the difference between talent and skill. The second thing, once we have that in mind, about is the perfect outreach framework. And in this particular case, I'm talking about a framework for email, but you can use this verbally, like pick up the phone and call somebody, follow a similar type framework. And so I want to give you that perfect framework that I use over and over again for success for me, for my customers in the workshop, whoever. This is exactly what I do. The third thing is why they don't respond to you. So sometimes I do these type of trainings and I say, why is the bad thing happening? And then I tell you what to do. Instead, I'm going to reverse this a little bit. In this lesson, I want us to talk about, here's the framework, do this. And if they're not responding to you when you're doing the framework, well, now let's evaluate it. But first, I want you to know the right way to do it as I then talk about why aren't they responding? Because usually they're not responding for something that we can adjust. And then the last thing is success is in the follow-up. When we talk about doing outreach in sales, it's not enough to do one phone call. You need to do 1 million phone calls. You need to do 1 million phone calls to one person. That might be a little excessive, right? But that's the follow-up, right? We want to do follow-up. And so that's where we're diving into today. If that makes sense, put in meetings rock into the chat. Let me know you want meetings going forward. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm the CEO and co-founder of GovCon in a Box. And I want to welcome you into my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner after I got out of the Army. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting, it's not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. You can expect repeatable, predictable results around your outreach effort. And today's training and today's lesson is really going to drive into that. If you haven't done so, subscribe to our Government Contracting Success newsletter. We keep putting out all sorts of valuable information related to your government contracting business, how to succeed in the federal market. And then I wanted to let you know about the training coming up. Let me just turn my camera off for 1 second to make this bigger. The training tomorrow on Tuesday, the 17th of December, is talking about 2025's sales part of the business plan. And so it's really important that you understand how to plan for sales going into 2025. And I'll lay that out for you tomorrow, and I'll give you some specific actions you can take before the end of December to make sure you're going into 2025 strong. And make sure you let me know you're coming, or not just subscribe, but register. Let me know you're attending. I wanted to congratulate people in the 100 Club, and I'll get rid of myself here for a second to bring them up. The 100 Club is a score, GovCon in a Box, that I give people. It's a federal visibility score, and we have a calculation on how visible are you to federal buyers. And so out of 360,000 small businesses selling to the federal government right now, only 110 have full visibility. It is our mission between now and the end of 2025 to increase that, so that list is 100,000, right? I want 100,000 names on this slide. I might need multiple slides, but go check out govconinabox.com. It's free. You go there, you put your company name, your UEI, whatever in there. It shows your profile, the profile of government data that they're looking at. I just pull it into our tool. We look at it. I give you a score. That score, let's say it's 62. When you click on it, you have to register because I only show the next information to the company themselves, but the registration is free. You click on the score and I tell you exactly what you need to fix. And along with telling you, I have a video that shows you more about that. So there's, and I say this softly, there's no excuse for not getting a score of 100 so that you're fully visible. And you can do this before the end of December. It doesn't cost you any money. You can fully do it yourself. I give you specific guidance. And then I have 1,000 more videos you can watch on that as well. So make sure you check it out. I got to stop coming off camera because I was like, do this. And I had all this antics and then you didn't see any of it. It was great. A lot of hand motion, really emphasizing the federal visibility score. All right, so let's talk about outreach. When we think about why people aren't getting back to us, a reminder that when people are getting back to us and we're reaching out to them to try to get a meeting, that is outreach. We call the 7-step process. You have research and then targeting, outreach, and relationships. These three are really important to me because they lead to the relationship. When you have relationships with teammates or buyers, federal buyers, then you're going to have a lot more success. You're going to have more success because you're able to get questions answered. You're able to hear about opportunities, et cetera. And so I really need to help you get to that phase. In here, I just wanted to start with a little bit of how have I come up with these processes that I teach? They're not some random thing. I'm not taking them from somebody else. They come from tons of years of experience of mine. And I just wanted to share it with you. First off, me, right? My experience in sales is 30 plus years. I know I look very young, but I often try to just say I only got 20 plus years, but I got 30 years of experience in sales across all different markets. I started off selling vacuum cleaners door to door. Then I went into the Army, and ironically, I sold myself from an infantryman, a machine gunner in the Rangers, all the way up to working for the Secretary of the Army. And I did that in 6 years, popping up. And you can go watch that story. But that was a sales journey of a different kind. And it was sales was always about learning what their problem is or what their need is, and then addressing it. So even in the Army, I was selling. And then when I came out, I started working for a bunch of 4-star generals who within 6 months convinced me to start my own business. And so I started my own network engineering business. And my first customer was this huge firm called Radian. And now they've been bought several times, but they were a large firm and they were my customer. And in there, I started working, and this was a small office of a bigger company. I started working with them to sell to their customers. And I really began to understand how government contracting works, getting in there, understanding the needs. But it was because I was able to get them into more and more meetings that they were able to have more success. They brought the past performance, they brought that skill, but they weren't that good at getting in. And I was better at getting in. And that led us to the Treasury. It led me to the Treasury, which was my first government contract. And this whole idea of just continuing through that career. I even sold on a train once. I remember working with this company that was asking me to help them with sales. And we jumped on a train from DC to New York. And before the train's even leaving the station, I'm talking to the person on the other side of the aisle about where they're going. I was like, oh yeah, we're going up there. We're going to have some meetings. We do this. Oh yeah, we do this. We're talking. And the CEO looks at me a little later. He's like, what the heck are you doing? Talking to people on the train. I'm like, that's my job. That's our job, is to reach out and talk to people. This is outreach. And when we talk to people, we maybe meet other people, or we get meetings and we get in the door and we start having conversations. So I have developed my skills, but sometimes my skills to people can look like a talent. Oh, Neil, you've always been good at it. And that drives me nuts a little bit because I really do follow processes. And so 4 or 5 years ago, I met Gus Phelps, and he might be on here today, but for those of you in our workshop, you certainly know him because now he runs our workshop program. I'm in there with him, but he runs it. But when I met him, he didn't know anything about government contracting. He had come in as an intern and to one of my customers, and he and I connected right away. And for his 90-day internship program, I gave him my process. I said, let me teach him how to just understand business development. But he knocked it out of the park by following the process. And within 60 days, he was getting meetings, not just with small business specialists, and this was at DLA, not just at small business specialists, but he was getting meetings inside of with contracting officers. He had meetings that were so high, he couldn't handle the meetings because he just didn't have the experience back then. So he had to bring in his bosses, but that was exactly the point. We taught him, and he and I just practiced that process that we now have turned into our BD Accelerator workshop. Research, which is him understanding DLA, targeting, finding the right people, and outreach, getting in. And that's what I'm going to talk to you today about, is how did he do it? How do I get people to do it over and over again? Is outreach, get meetings, and start building those relationships that will lead to future opportunities. If that's what you want, and if you believe me that this is a skill that you can learn, put skill into the chat. Darlene, way to jump ahead there. That's perfect. Put skill in the chat. Let me know that you believe that this is a skill that you can learn. It's not a talent you missed out on being born with or something. Okay, so let's talk about the perfect outreach framework. This one's really important to me as you move forward. I've got a lot of previous training you can go watch. I've done 100 plus trainings on related to outreach and how do you get out there. I have example emails, et cetera. But I wanted to talk in this particular slide, this particular part of the lesson, about the outreach framework. When you're reaching out to somebody, you should follow a framework. Frankly, you should follow a framework on everything, right? It's aligned with process. When you follow in process, you've got something going. So the framework that I'm sharing here the first thing I want you to pay attention to is your the from address. I get emails from people, even in this community. I get emails from people in this community that has one name, like their name. And if I'm lucky, I might remember who they are. But more importantly, even if I knew it was them, it's like, Hillary or Nina or Emily or somebody. I'm like, if it's just one name, I begin to ignore it in my inbox. I don't know what it is, probably spam. Who would only use one word? So the proper way to do it is your first name and your last name. Never use your formal name. Use your common name, the name your friends and colleagues call you. If you're James, but you go by Jim, say Jim, right? And so you put your name in there and comma, and then your company name. So when your email comes in to my inbox, the first thing I'm seeing is a level of maturity to the email. This is part of the framework. It's subliminal to me, right? I don't even know that I'm ignoring things sometimes, or I guess I do because I'm teaching you, but most of us don't even realize that we're ignoring certain things and favoring certain things for subliminal reasons. This is an example of a subliminal reason, your from address. Second thing is your subject line. Clickbait is okay. I've heard people talk about clickbait. It's like, it's clickbait. Yeah, that's totally cool. What's not good is bait and switch. So clickbait is, if you don't know this, fishing, you got a fishing pole, it's got a line. At the end of the line, it's got a hook. And on the hook, you put bait. You're hoping to attract the type of fish you're fishing for. For us, that subject line is the hook. The bait on the hook. We're trying to attract the type of buyer we want. So if I'm trying to talk to an IT person and I put something IT, my bait is attracting IT federal buyers. If a construction federal buyer gets my email, they're going to look at it and go, nah, I don't like that bait. I don't like that food. And they move away. So clickbait's good. Bait and switch is when you sit there and say, I'll promise you how to make $1 million. And then when you get in, I just am trying to guide you somewhere else. Not promise you'll make it. I'll teach you step by step how to make $1 million. And then when you get in, there's no step by step. It's like just a little bit. And so it's one of the things I pay attention to. When I have a subject line, it really needs to have the meat behind it. And that's what you want to do. But I want you to understand that that subject line must be clickbait. You want them to click on it. If I get your email and I subliminally say, okay, the first name, last name, and company name's there, I trust the email that much, then I look to the subject line, and it needs to be like 50 characters. Anything more than that, it becomes hard for us to see it physically because mobile devices, et cetera, shrink it. So 50 characters, you need to, 50, 60 characters, you need to give me that clickbait. And that clickbait needs to attract me. Like I said, if you're trying to attract IT buyers, put something like that in there. And then the last part of the framework is the body, right? And keep in mind, all I'm talking about is how do I get them to respond to me? It's not even how to get a meeting. That's a separate training. But how do I get them to open my email and respond? Hey, Neil, no, I don't want to meet with you. Cool, thanks. Hey, Neil, what do you want to meet about? Tell me more. Or, hey, Neil, yes, let's schedule a time, right? I want those three type of responses. And no is a totally okay response. Right. In fact, I want no's because the more no's I get, the closer I'm getting to yeses, because the law of average says I will get yeses when I have enough no's. So I've got them clicking on my email and opening up and reading it. Now I've got to get them to read it as fast as possible and make a decision. And I need that decision to be made in like 2 seconds. If you've done enough email, you open it, it's like, tell me, like if it's too long, I'm not going to read it because I respect you. I want to give it the attention it deserves. So I'll put it over here. I need that body to be clear and concise. And concise means 1 or 2 lines, pop, pop, pop. If you want to understand how I do that, just look at my LinkedIn post where I have short, concise sentences. And I try to keep it all on one line so it makes it easy for us to read. That's how our brains are trained to read things now, social media style. And so make your emails kind of like that. Clear means it needs to be really simple to understand, 4th grade level. What I like to do is something like, I'm hooking them to a degree inside the email again with hey, I read your strategic plan. I wanted to talk to you about priority number 5, which is data analytics. Can I get 15 minutes of your time? Can I get 10 minutes of your time? Never ask for an hour, never ask for a long meeting. Get 5 to 15 minutes. If you can't convince them to schedule a second meeting, then the meeting wasn't a good idea anyways. It wasn't a good fit. And so the last thing is make sure in that body of the email, you only have one ask. I want a meeting. Don't ask for 2 things. If you ask for 2 things, it'll cause confusion to the person and they won't get back to you or they'll answer with the wrong thing. Very quickly, just you should have emails, right? Or excuse me, templates. You should have a template email that is the basis of what you'll send out. Do not spam. Do not send out bulk emails, etc. One at a time, one at a time, one at a time. Don't spend forever researching them, but make sure you kind of customize it to their name. Like if their name is William, but you see over here they go by Will, call them Will. But start off with a template. But as you get better with this skill, you will be able to just come in and write an email based on what you're seeing. It's like, okay, I know that I want this one thing. And it's not just initial meetings. Even down the road, you always want to be sending emails in clear ways. Okay, so remember that framework though. The from address, the subject line, and the body. These are all three things that you need to pay attention to on outreach. So if you're sending out that email, let's talk about why federal buyers aren't getting back to you. Why aren't you getting these responses that you want? Not meetings. We haven't been rejected yet for a meeting. They just haven't even responded to us. The first reason, and in my opinion, the most important reason that you don't get a response back from another government contractor or a federal buyer is because you targeted the wrong group of people. In the federal sales process that I teach, the 7-step process, right? Begins with research, understanding who you're trying to go after, and then targeting is the very second step. The second step about targeting is finding the right people. I got a couple of quick examples here. So in our workshop, we teach this targeting and outreach, right? That's really the whole workshop, is getting you in the door. And in one example, we just found like, I think it was close to 300 government points of contact, but around American Sign Language, right? Around this one thing. And so I'm able to reach out to a bunch of people who have already, in this case, it was contracting officers, a bunch of people who have already awarded contracts in ASL. They will know what I'm talking about, compared to if I reach out to a bunch of contracting officers who were doing construction or IT or something. They're farther away, and just the look at my email will make them go, I'm not interested. But if they have awarded contracts to ASL in the last year, then there's a likelihood that I'm targeting the right people to at least get a meeting or a response, even not even a meeting, a response. The second one is SharePoint architects. I really wanted this for my staffing companies out there, all the companies that are doing staffing, and we can help you do recruiting. I highly encourage you to niche down as far as you can go. And niching down to IT, in my opinion, is not enough. You know, we do IT staffing as an example. You want to niche down farther into SharePoint as an example that I have here, or even SharePoint architects, so that when I'm reaching out to companies or people that might be related to that, I'm looking at a bunch of SharePoint architects or talking about how I can help you find SharePoint architects, these really elusive people. You can always come back and talk about more stuff. But if you don't have the right group of people, that targeted list, then you're going to increase the likelihood of people not responding. But if you do have the right list in there, then you're going to go up. I'm looking at Jay Madigan right there, and I know Jay does water management. So Jay should be targeting whoever he's reaching out to, people who have a responsibility around or an interest around water, and they will at least go, let me see. But those who don't have an interest in water go, that's not me, and they'll move on. Number two, they missed your email. It's a really important one because you can relate to this. Emails come in, they get buried in your inbox, and there's all sorts of reasons why we miss your email. We got sick kids, we were out for a week. I put in here disorganized because I think that's my number one reason for not reaching out. I just got a lot of plates that I'm spinning, and so sometimes I will miss people reaching out to me. Doesn't mean I don't want to get back to them. I haven't responded, so there's nothing there. But the idea is that sometimes they're disorganized and your emails are going buried, or your voicemail, right? I literally have voicemails. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to follow up. And I don't get many voicemails, like let's say 2 or 3 a week at most. And so somebody can put a voicemail in it and I save it. I'm like, oh, I got to get back to John Smith. And then I don't. I'm disorganized. You've got to understand this, because outreach, this third step in our process, is about following up. If somebody sends me an email and they really want to get hold of me for whatever reason, they need to follow up. And it's the same thing for me. If I'm reaching out to a federal buyer, I need to follow up until they get back to me. And the last one is number 3, you didn't give them a reason. In that subject line, you did not give them a reason to open it. Or if you did give them a reason to open it, but they looked at the body like, nah, I don't feel like calling you back. And this is really important that you get good. You develop this skill of going, what would that other person care about enough to at least respond to me to say, let's talk a little bit more, right? Do my emails look like they're salesy emails, or do they look like professional, clear, to the point emails, like something you would write to your colleague right in your company? Make sure that when you're thinking about outreach, right, that you want those hooks that capture their eyes, but also you want a reference that's relatable. So that's why I like talking to somebody's strategic plan. Or today I just shared, for those of you DevOps companies, I just shared a post on LinkedIn about an industry day. I could reach out to the people who are related to it and tell them, hey, I just saw the industry day slide. Can I get 10 minutes of your time to ask you a couple of quick questions? Right? I'm just feeling it out. How can I get in? Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is how important follow-up is in your success factors, right? If you want success in outreach, right? If you want people to respond to your emails, respond to your voicemails and phone calls, if you want them to respond and they're not responding, follow up. It's your responsibility. I call this take responsibility, get control. If you take responsibility for why they're not getting back to you, right? It clearly is their fault if they're not getting back to you. But if you want to increase your chances of them coming back, take responsibility. Go, I got responsibility. What can I do? Well, now you're in control, because now you determine how can you get that person to get back to you. Do I need to make a more interesting subject line or body? Do I need to follow up? And I'm saying follow up is a big portion of this. People ask me all the time, how often should I follow up when I'm trying to reach out to a federal buyer? You want to follow up every 2 to 3 days. If you reach out to these people in the first place, then you probably wanted to get in the door. Don't stop until you're in the door or they send you a cease and desist order, right? They're not going to do that, right? They're just not going to get back to you. But at some point, they're like, yeah, I'm not a fit for you or something. At some point, when you hit 60 times of following up, then you can back off. But generally, if you're trying to get in and you're contacting the right people, following up is just bringing something to the top of their inbox. So follow up relentlessly. Don't forget about using LinkedIn as a way to engage. There's so many federal buyers out here that can reach out to you. Put follow-up rocks into the chat. If you understand this, you must follow up. You cannot just send a bunch of emails and they didn't get back to me. You can't send an email and then send another one a week or two later. They didn't get back to me. Yeah, because they don't put the two emails together. But if you follow up with an email and then a voicemail and then an email, they're like, oh, I really want to get back to that person. I have heard that story more where the customer gets back and goes, I'm sorry, I really meant to get back to you. I was busy. I've heard that story 10 to 1 times over. They were mad at me. I've never heard a story about the customer being mad at you following up. As long as you're professional, you're good to go. Don't forget about using your voicemail. Call them. I just told you, I only get 2 to 3 voicemails a week. If somebody left me a voicemail, guaranteed I'm going to hear it. It's a differentiator. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. This is a skill, not a talent. Outreach is a skill. Getting people to call you back, right? That's a skill. I have a higher number of people responding back to my outreach than you do. But as you develop that skill, you will come in line with mine. Second thing is target the right people. That is really important. It's like the most important thing we teach in the workshop is understanding what you're selling, who you're trying to sell it to, like who buys it, and building that list of 200 names. That's a target list. Build that target list of right people, and you'll increase the success factor. And the last thing here to remember is I want you to track metrics. If you reach out to 100 people, how many people responded, right? If you're not getting 16 people out of 100 responding, you need to look at what you just did on the outreach, right? And then still do follow-up. Definitely do that. But before you send to the next 100 people, make sure you refine that email because something is not clicking with it. Hey, if you would like our help on this is actually what we do in the BD Accelerator Workshop. It is for companies doing, I like to say around $2 million because there's a significant investment in your future. But if you want us to help you get this done, that's what our BD Accelerator Workshop's about. You can put workshop into the chat. This is the last time I'm selling the workshop. As we go into 2025, we're doing a whole different route. We're still doing this training every day. We'll be here, but we're not going to be available kind of one-to-one with customers after that. So if you're interested, put that in. And as you move forward and you start doing more of this outreach, just remember government contracting and outreach, it's just a process. It's not a secret. I will see you in the next training.